An imperial admiral knelt on the deck of his own ship and chose death. He didn't die in battle. He didn't die under enemy bullets. He killed himself because the alternative was unbearable, surrendering his sword to her. A woman, a former courtesan from the floating boats of the Pearl River, a figure the Qing Empire refused to name in official records without a mixture of dread and humiliation. Her name was Zheng Yisao. In the West, they called her Ching Shih, and at the height of her reign, she commanded over 1,800 warships, 80,000 warriors, an extortion network that suffocated the trade of three empires at the same time. Blackbeard, that terror of the Atlantic who entered into legend, had 4 ships. 4. Ching Shih had a floating nation, and no one at any point in documented history came close to what she built in the dark waters of the South China Sea. Southern China, at the end of the 18th century, was a place where being born poor was a sentence. The Qing dynasty controlled a colossal empire, but its coasts were rotting from the inside. 75% of the coastal military posts operated with 10 soldiers or fewer. Many had only 2 men between the ocean and the starving fishing villages. In those same waters, international trade was exploding. Ships loaded with silk and silver crossed the Pearl River Delta with insolent regularity. The only legal door was Canton, a city where wealth and misery looked each other in the eye without anyone doing anything. It was here that Xu Yang was born, around 1775, without official registration, nameless in the state's archives. To the empire, she didn't exist. Daughter of the Tanka people, the boat people. She grew up on the water. When necessity arrived, she was taken to the flower boats of the Pearl River. The flower boats were not what the name suggests. Multi-story vessels with carved wood, imported lamps, and reception halls. A floating city of entertainment in the heart of Canton. There, mandarins, generals, and merchants got drunk and talked, and Xu Yang heard everything. The records describe her as a shrewd businesswoman. She learned geopolitics between confessions. She understood trade routes and the empire's vulnerabilities before understanding what she was accumulating. Power, information as a weapon, silence as a strategy. Out there in Vietnam, a rebellion was transforming fishermen into war veterans. The Thai San regime recruited Guangdong pirates as mercenaries, trained them in naval tactics, and returned them to the sea as combat machines. When the dynasty fell, these warriors returned to the coast of China, without a job, without loyalty, without a leader. The floating army was waiting, and she was about to find it. Zheng Yi was no ordinary pirate. He came from a criminal lineage that had dominated the South China Sea for decades. He commanded between 200 and 600 ships. He was a veteran of the Vietnamese privateering wars, and a warlord with enough military muscle to intimidate any provincial armada. But he lacked something he couldn't name. In 1801, he went to get Xu Yang. The accounts diverge. Some sources say he sent a squadron to invade the floating brothel by force. Others indicate he went to her with a formal marriage proposal, recognizing the value of the intelligence network she had built over years listening to drunk nobles. Either way, Xu Yang didn't accept just any position. She demanded a real partnership. 50% of all profits, direct operational command over parts of the fleet, and equal voice in all strategic decisions. Zheng Yi accepted. Upon sealing the deal, she became Zheng Yisao. In the West, they would call her Ching Shih, but those names hid what she really was, the architect of something the world had never seen. Together, they didn't just pirate, they built a monopoly. They roamed the coast convincing, coercing, and terrorizing rival pirate chiefs into joining a single confederation. In 1805, it became official. The Guangdong Pirate Confederation, subdivided into 6 tactical fleets, each under a different colored flag: red, black, white, blue, green, yellow. In a few months, the combined armada reached between 40,000 and 70,000 warriors and more than 400 warships. To put that into perspective, Blackbeard terrorized the Atlantic with 4 ships and 300 men. His entire operation would fit in a single sector of Ching Shih's Red Fleet. And then, in November 1807, Zheng Yi died. Some records say it was a typhoon, others combat wounds in Vietnam. The archives do not agree, but the effect was immediate and devastating. 5 admirals, 5 entire fleets, each with enough troops for a private war, and none inclined to obey a widow whose origins trace back to the floating brothels. Anyone else would have backed down. Ching Shih attacked. Her first move was surgical. She approached Zhang Bao, Zheng Yi's adopted son, a young fisherman the pirate lord had captured and promoted to the position of favorite tactical commander of the shock troops. Zhang Bao was the idol of the soldiers. With him by her side, any mutiny from the ranks would be suicide. She named him her supreme lieutenant that very same day. Then she summoned the admirals. And she didn't ask. She explained. The logistics network, the trade routes, the supply warehouses, the Canton intelligence, everything was in her hands. Without her, the Confederation would starve to death before being destroyed by the Imperials. The 5 admirals yielded. Zheng Yi Sao was formally named Sovereign Chief of the South China Pirate Confederation. But she didn't stop at military dominance. She transformed crime into a system. Every ship that crossed the waters of southern China, from the smallest fishing trawler to the massive European merchant ships, was forced to buy a protection passport, a license issued by the pirates themselves. Ships with the document sailed in peace. Ships without it were confiscated, their crews sold or mutilated. She installed toll booths inside the Chinese mainland ports themselves. Pirate customs operating in public squares, with the bureaucratic efficiency of a European nation. And she identified the empire's most sensitive point: salt. The salt monopoly was the fiscal backbone of the Qing dynasty, as vital as air, as heavy as iron, as lucrative as pure silk. Ching Shih blocked the government routes and took control of distribution in southern China. The emperor himself in Beijing was now in practice forced to negotiate with her for salt to reach the provinces. An unregistered former courtesan in the empire, Chorna was collecting taxes from the emperor. She also created a constitution. The penal code of the Red Flag Fleet was the strictest ever recorded in the history of piracy: desertion, death. Unauthorized looting in allied villages, death. Disobeying an order in combat, death. But loyalty was rewarded. Military skill opened doors for promotion for a miserable peasant of the Qing dynasty. Joining Ching Shih's fleet was, paradoxically, one of the only paths to a better life. Every piece was in place. The emperor in Beijing took too long to understand what was growing on his coasts. When he understood, it was already too late. Emperor Jia had a problem he couldn't name in public. A growing portion of his seas, his coasts, and his trade routes obeyed someone else. And that person was not a rebel general, nor a rival prince, nor a foreign power. It was a woman born on a floating boat. The embarrassment was unbearable. In 1808, Beijing ordered all-out war. The Qing dynasty mobilized the largest naval formation in years. Armadas designed to converge and destroy the Red Flag Fleet in a single decisive operation. Any pirate with a sense of survival would have fallen back, dispersed the fleets, disappeared into the inland coves. Ching Shih and Zhang Bao marched head-on. What happened next should have been impossible. Ching Shih's war junks had advantages that Western admiralties couldn't replicate. Flat bottoms that allowed sailing in shallow waters where British frigates would run aground. Watertight internal compartments that prevented quick sinkings, even under heavy bombardment, like armored chambers containing the damage within. Articulated bamboo sails that could be adjusted in mid-combat like blinds, while European galleons fought the wind like 8-story buildings trying to make a turn. These vessels were not warships. They were organisms. The junks engaged the imperial lines head-on and destroyed them. Half of the mobilized Qing armadas was incinerated, bombarded, or captured. 63 imperial ships were towed back to Ching Shih's fleet. Now part of her army, captured sailors were given a choice: swear immediate loyalty and join the looting, or be chained to the deck and clubbed to death. The majority chose loyalty. An officer named Lin Guoliang tried with 35 ships. He was repelled. Sun Quanmu tried with 100 warships. A fleet that would be considerable for any European power of the time was decimated or dispersed into exile. And then came the news that chilled the imperial corridors of Beijing. Admiral Kuo Lang committed suicide. He didn't die in battle. He chose death so he wouldn't have to surrender his sword to her. He preferred to extinguish himself than live with the humiliation of what that name represented. Zheng Yisao. Beijing was out of options and went looking for help outside its borders. The Portuguese in Macau had lost ships to the pirates since September 1809. The loyal Senate of the city of Macau gathered its frigates, its brigs, and its artillery, and accepted the imperial proposal. The Chinese viceroy paid the equivalent of 80,000 taels to buy Portuguese cooperation, an unprecedented alliance. The Qing dynasty and the colonial forces of Lisbon united against a single enemy. The operation was concentrated at the Tiger's Mouth, the rocky entrance to the human estuary, where Zhang Bao and his red fleets were cornered in Tung Chung Bay. The siege lasted for weeks. Portuguese cannon salvos fired for more than 9 hours straight in some clashes. Zhang Bao's warriors were battered from all sides, with the Qing imperial fleet on the opposite flank, which chronicles record with historical irony, frequently refused to engage when it was most needed. The cornered pirates' ration was boiled rice. When there was rice, sometimes caterpillars. The English officer Richard Glasspool, captured by the pirates and held hostage in the same fleet for months, left visceral records of the period. He described savage raids, brutal discipline, and a leadership that instilled real terror in everyone around them. Then the Portuguese unleashed the fire ships, incendiary boats, soaked in combustible substances and flaming fuses, were launched against the compact mass of junks stranded in the cove. If the fire reached the bamboo rigging and the dried sails, it would be the end. Ching Shih's men didn't retreat. With boarding hooks and nimble small boats, they grabbed the blazing fire ships. They extinguished the flames and redirected the burning keels back against the blockaders. The Allied fleets claimed trophies, more than 15 junks destroyed, segments of the Red Fleet shattered. Zhang Bao had lost a lot, but the leadership escaped. Ching Shih was intact, and she already knew, with a clarity that her enemies would still take time to understand, that the most important battle of that war had never happened at sea. It would happen at a negotiating table, and no cannon in the world would stop her from winning it. There is a number that needs to be said out loud once again, so it truly sinks in. 80,000. 80,000 men obeyed a single woman, a fleet larger than the standing armies of a good part of the European nations of the time, an organization with its own taxes, its own laws, its own trade routes, and a penal constitution stricter than any pirate code ever recorded in the documented history of humanity. And this woman had been born nameless in the empire's records, invisible to the state from the day she arrived in the world. She came from the flower boats of the Pearl River, where courtesans and melancholic songs attended to inebriated mandarins. From there, she collected secrets. She learned geopolitics between glasses of wine and confessions from nobles. And she used each fragment of information as a stone in the foundation of something the world had never seen before and did not see again. But what exactly was Zheng Yisao? A state? A mafia? An army? A corporation? Perhaps none of these terms is sufficient to contain what she built in the dark waters of southern China. What the records show is that she won, in every sense in which it is possible to win. She won in combat. She won in diplomacy. She beat time, surviving enemies, poverty, obscurity, and violence, and dying rich, free, and surrounded by family at 69 years old. And yet, Blackbeard became fantasy, a theme park, a movie franchise. Ching Shih is a footnote. Perhaps the most disturbing question isn't how she built the largest pirate fleet in history, but why the world decided, in silence, that this story didn't deserve to be told. And what else, exactly like this, are we choosing not to tell now?